Yes, I mean, we were way over the edge on the salary in the first place.
Let me tell you something. If you ever notice, whenever there's an outsider involved, all these issues crop up.
Yes.
Why? Because you're cutting off those links.
Yeah.
They didn't want an outsider.
There's a leak.
in here.
Exactly correct.
So, if we hit him with the salary, maybe he'll just withdraw. Well, it backfired. Now they have to deal with another outsider. We have the same issues here in New Smyrna Beach.
Oh, they're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
What about Helen Coffin? She was brought in to lead Team Volusia. I have unimpeachable sources that say that she left because she simply could not tolerate Ted Doran's overreaching interference in everything that was going on. Well, she took a job somewhere else in another state.
I know I beat up Mr. Doran a little bit today online about the qualifying, but you know, in fairness to these politicians, it really speaks volumes that you don't have more of the Gulf War veteran, the everyday kind of person coming out there. They're not going to public meetings anymore
because it's money. It's all about money.
It's all the insider, and the funny thing is, it's becoming more pronounced now.
That's right.
Is the role of print media and being part of that, getting a slice of that advertising pie. And just to clarify for the viewers, the advertising authority is bed tax money. A percentage goes back to the community to be divvied up
to promote tourism in Volusia County and the whole county in Daytona Beach.
And that's where the rub is of what kind of events are family oriented. It's kind of hard to say you're family oriented when you got people partying
but
out in the open.
But not only that, they're serving beer and wine out in the streets because they got a license. What about all the businesses that are restaurants and bars in that area that pay their dues and pay their taxes, and they're being competition?
Let's be clear about this. In a lot of cases, they didn't have licenses to be out in the public street.
Oh, I know that.
That was where, look the other way, because these merchants are power brokers, and we want to make sure that us high-priced administrators stay in place, and our net politicians don't say something stupid.
Well, I think that the core of this problem really is how elections are financed.
Absolutely.
I think that the founders would probably turn over in their collective grave if they could see what had happened to electoral financing in this country over the centuries. We have now a system of legalized bribery in which every politician who wants to get elected, unless he's incredibly wealthy, has to go out and beg for money every day of his incumbency, or for a year or two prior to running and getting elected for the first time. And when you go out and you ask for money, you don't say, oh gee, I'm the best guy running, so you should support me. You talk about the interests of the potential donor. And you may not necessarily, if you give me this amount, I will do X. But you make it very clear that you will look favorably upon whatever problems that person might have. The Supreme Court has ruled that the contribution of money for this purpose is a form of free speech and is constitutionally protected. I believe the court is wrong. Well, the court has ruled in the past that women didn't have the vote. It's ruled that people could keep slaves. It's ruled that Jim Crow laws were legal. It's made all kinds of rulings that were wrong in the past, and I think this one is too. I think that if elections were funded from public money,
with a cap.
Well, of course, with a cap. That we would first of all severely reduce the level of electoral corruption in the country overnight. We would reduce the level of special interests and their influence on elected officials, and a real benefit, we would reduce the length of political campaigns, because the cap would be low enough so that folks wouldn't be able to spend vast amounts for television advertising and other kinds of things in order to get elected. It'll never happen.
But at the local level, you see common denominators. You see these bigger business people, these pillars of the community, whether it's a Speedway, not to pick on them, the Speedway is an excellent, corporate sponsor of a lot of charitable efforts in the community, and they draw a lot of people for the Daytona 500
surely do.
And Speed Weeks. And including the summer race when things are pretty, except for the beach. But it seems funny how these certain group of politicians who become term limited and go to another seat, they often don't have opposition the second or third time around, and they're still well financed to the tune of $80,000, $100,000.
And what do you think happens to all that money?
You know what I mean? And
then they hand it out to...
And the media gets a slice of it, and you know, it just goes around and around and around. And how do the voters, Bobby, relate to that when they see what's going on with, for example, New Smyrna Beach coming off as more like New Smyrna CRA than the city itself?
I want to go back to something Stan said. Political donations have been a major problem, but I think I see a trend change here. Perfect example, let's look at Wisconsin, the amount of money, the tens of millions of dollars that went into that recently. 80% of the voters had said their mind was made up, so money did not play a role in this. Now, I may put my neck way out here. I believe this next election for the president's office has been decided. Oh, the unknown, that these folks are not looking at, all the people are sitting out there struggling to put bread on their table, that have fallen through the cracks, that are not counted anywhere. This is the silent folks that are going to come and have a huge impact on this election. Does it matter how much money each side has? No. Let me give you a perfect example. In New Smyrna Beach several years ago, we had a political money machine in Mayor Vanderbilt. He was there for years and years and years. And then all of a sudden this challenger came along, Sally McKay. Now she also had money, but the decision had been made before this money even flooded into the campaign. People were fed up. Sally really whooped them. I mean, forget about the money that might have been available. People were done. I see that happening more and more. So, while I understand and agree to a certain point where you're coming from with the
but then came the Anglers.
Then the Anglers thing, yep.
Where she lasted one term.
Yep.
And an angler, Adam Barringer, with a wonderful acumen, business acumen, PhD, restaurateur, good looks, became the next mayor.
But money didn't play. You know what happened there? I'll just give you quick. When people elected Sally, they expected her to do certain things. Sally was the type of person that wanted to be everything to everyone. You cannot do that as an elected official. You've got to lead. It might be unpopular to some folks, but that's what you're supposed to do. We would have a meeting, everything would get pushed to the next meeting. At the next meeting, it would get pushed to the next meeting. No decisions were being made. People had enough of that. Adam Barringer came along, very nice presentation, nice education, boom, thank you. Again, money did not come into play in that election. They looked and said, is this what we want, or is this what we want? And I'll go back to the same two statements I make all the time to everybody.
But in the Barringer thing, though, there was that influence of, like, for example, Brown and Brown, heavy influence in that first election. Go ahead.
Okay. It comes down to two questions, and really two questions only. And I'm sorry, I got to say, one of them came a long time ago. I wish it was spoken every election. Am I better off now than I was 2 or 4 years ago? Is my family better off now? Is my future better? That's it. You know, take all the personalities, take the money. Where are we heading as a country or a city or as a county? Are we better off now than where we were back then? If not, come on out, vote, make a change. If not, you deserve everything you're getting.
Well, the problem with that is that I don't deserve it because I'm voting against it.
I hear you.
But it's really tough when that's the only alternative. And so many people stay home and don't exercise. One vote can make a huge, huge difference.
Well, Stan, that's a good point. But how do people, if they see in the public sector, you know, there's all this discussion about, for example, not to pick on them, but firefighters with unfunded pensions. And the whole issue of, for example, New Smyrna Beach. Police officers haven't gotten a raise in close to 4 years now, but they're getting a lot of overtime because they're so short-handed. How does the private sector person with an average salary, say $30,000, and they're lucky they have a second income coming in, relate to, in New Smyrna Beach, you've got at least 50 people that make $50,000 and up, and the numbers going over the six-figure number is creeping real close, and you've got someone that's past the 200,000. You know, how can you relate, and especially with this, you know, you've got Bruno and Hugo for the state senate. Each of them has well over 100,000. You got Persis well over 100,000. I just read something the other day about Obama and Romney, one outdoing the other one with how many millions in a given month. Once they get into office, remember, Obama was supposed to bring change.
He did.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think that the voters will bring change in November, or do you think the incumbent has a shot?
I don't think so. I believe people are genuinely upset. And they can see the answer to Bob's question right in front of their faces. Their friends don't have jobs. They're losing their homes. They have no retirement money. They lived the American dream according to the American dream. Saved their money, went to college, got a job, bought a house, did all those things. And it's all disappearing just like that. And with the interest rates and the Fed keeping everything so low, if you did have any money that you saved, it's all gone now because you're not earning any interest on it.
And the 401ks
you have to dip
went
into
down
the
the
principal.
the stock market.
So are you better off? Mm-mm.
Bobby, let's get your take on that.
I'm going to go and follow up with Sally. The biggest concern that I have, even this election, there's been a major shift of power in the world, and it sure isn't us anymore.
That's right.
The biggest threat that I see is the conversion from using the US dollar as the world's currency to the Chinese currency. I don't think the average person has any clue what this is going to do. Now, once that currency changes, we are no longer allowed to pick up the phone, tell the Fed, print another trillion. Oh, how many billions you want to say? That all stops. Life in this country and the future in this country as we have known it will come to a screaming halt. Our children and grandchildren are the ones that are going to suffer for this, which makes me the most nervous. I'm going to be dead. I'm going to be gone. They're going to suffer for this their whole lifetime.
Sally pointed out earlier that all politics are local, and they absolutely are. Volusia County is in a sad state. It's in that state.
450,000 people.
Yes. It's not such
near a beach.
Yeah, it's not such a huge place, but it is in a sad economic condition, largely because the place has been run for decades by the same people or people with the same mindset who have simply spent the county into the ground, into the ditch. They've dug a great deep pit for the county, and something has to be done to get them out of it. That's going to require electing a whole new group of people who themselves have a very different mindset, who are looking to reduce spending, who are looking to find alternative streams of income, who are looking to reduce property taxes while using those alternative streams of income to fund what must be funded. But the point, whether at the county level or the national level, is that the problems that have been created by folks for a long, long time now, and in the case of the national level, I have to admit both Republicans and Democrats, the problems that have been created are so great. Volusia County could be looking at bankruptcy in the not too distant future. The United States, for all practical purposes, with a $16 trillion debt, is bankrupt. The problems are so great that there is no solution that will come without pain.
But the short answer is that national ticket, right?
The national ticket fires the people up, but there's one more point that you've got to understand, and your viewers have got to understand, and that is that if you elect people who really and truly put their intellect and their capacities to the solution of the problems, there are no solutions that aren't going to be hard to take, like bitter medicine. And it's going to be necessary for the American people to suck it up, to tighten their belts for a while, to make do with less, until we can get things back on track and allow the strength of the free market in this country and the basic intellect and creativity of the American people to get the country growing again, whether it's at the county level or the national level. That means 2 or 4 years after we elect these reformers, for God's sake, don't say, oh my God, I'm not as well off as I was 3 or 4 years ago, because you're not going to be. And don't go and try and vote back in the same people who created the problem for you in the first place, because they'll just give you something that'll make you feel good today, but tomorrow the problem will be even worse. The choice we face is between a little pain now or insupportable, insufferable, irrecoverable pain down the road. I favor the first choice.
Well, Bob, the short answer in summary.
My answer?
Yes. Very short.
The voters better get off their duff. They better get involved. And I have 2 questions for them, which I've already said. Are you better off now than you were 2 or 4 years ago? Do you see a future for your family and your grandchildren? If not, make a change.
Sally.
Absolutely, we need
Well,
to
for
make it.
Bob Polly, for Stan Escudero, for Sally Gillis, this is Henry Frederick of Headline Surfer, and you can check us out on headlinesurfer.com, and it's going to be an enlightening election season.